Now we're on familiar grounds again. We finally cracked the top 10. At number 10, we have the Fox Sports 1 Cletus. This debuted in 2014, driven by Frank Kreml, and then in 2016, he left it, and then Neil Elliott drove it on a Max D chassis at World Final 17, and then Colt Stevens, after revealing himself as Doomsday, drove it for a year, and then God knows what happened to him. And then Mark McDonald was just shoved in here for a year, and now I don't even remember where they put this truck, if they even put it in the 2019 kickoff season at all. So it might be retired, who knows. And honestly, I don't care. Number 9. At number 9, we have Sobe. If you don't know Sobe, I think debuted in 2002, maybe 2003. It was driven by Kathy Winston, and then eventually, I think it was only about a year. I think this truck was only around for about a year or two, and then eventually it transformed into this truck. Team Suzuki. You could say it's a duo list, but honestly, I consider those two separate trucks. But I like Team Suzuki a lot more because this is the one that I grew up with, and Sobe was just way before my time. This truck retired at the very end of 2008, and here is a shot of its last run, and for its last run it ran as a Ford for some reason. It was always a Chevy. Also, this truck did the very first front rollover and save in 2008. So I guess this sort of has a historic significance to it. Maybe. Who knows. Number 8. At number 8, we are back to familiar grounds. It is the Amsoil Shock Therapy that debuted in 2009 or 2010, definitely. And then I don't know when it retired, maybe 2012, maybe, because it wasn't at World Finals 13. It was only World Finals 11 and 12. It was driven by, what we now know is John Zimmer, and I just really like this truck. This truck, I believe, was owned by Sudden Impact Racing. And also it was driven, or it was also, I think it was driven by Carl Van Horn at one point, but I could definitely be way off there. Also, it also got a brother truck named Colt Energy Activator. If you don't know, Colt Energy Activator is pretty much Monster Energy, but it is probably a lot worse for you than, it's kind of like Jolt. I mean, drinking one bottle is about the equivalent of drinking 16 Cokes. I mean, I feel like that could possibly kill you. But I just thought, I didn't think about this truck until doing this list, but it might be, instead of doing honorable mentions, I just decided to include this truck right now. So, I don't know. They're definitely not the same truck because they ran around the same time. Debuted in 2009, driven by Sean Duan, and then it probably retired around 2010-ish. Number 7. Before we get into number 7, I want to dedicate a lost truck, Lucas Oil Crusader. It's safe to say it's pretty much retired because Lindsey Wink had a TBA under his name. So number 7 is Lucas Oil Crusader. It debuted in 2011, and pretty much Lucas Oil kind of lost their contract with VP Racing Fuels, hint hint. And then I guess it's safe to say this year was its last year. I kind of got sick of this truck after a while, but it's still a very cool paint scheme. I like the night on it. Number 6. Another missed truck on here. Number 6 is the U.S. Air Force Afterburner, along with an equally missed driver, David Bradshaw. This truck debuted in 2006, maybe, or 2005, and then eventually retired and was replaced with Monster Energy because it's almost the same exact truck. And I really like the blue and silver on it. Eventually, they added the Feel the Blue on that pinstripe right there. Yeah, I really miss this truck, as well as a lot of other people do. And unfortunately, it's not coming back, but they could replace it with the U.S. Army Afterburner. Or they could do like a throwback with Monster Energy and do a blue and silver Monster Energy if they wanted to. Number 5. At number 5, we have another iconic truck. This is the Taz truck. It debuted at the very end of 2005. It won the Freestyle Championship in 2008 with Adam Anderson aboard, and that was a very awesome freestyle. And eventually, after 2011, they eventually changed the paint scheme to Tasmanian Devil, and then eventually it just wasn't really popular, with Nicole Johnson driving and then a few other women driving it. So eventually it got ditched, and then the truck pretty much became Scooby-Doo because they're both Warner Brothers characters, or not, or rather, yeah, it's, I don't know. Number 4. Anyone who has known monster trucks with sponsorships knew this guy would be up here. Number 4 is the VP Racing Fuels Mad Scientist. The only reason it's up so high is for how iconic that this truck would become. Of course, it landed the first ever front flip unintentionally at World Finals 18. And of course, this guy, Lee O'Donnell, was the main driver of it. Of course, he came from Zombie Hunter, which that truck was very unpopular. And this truck's not up here for the front flip alone. If it was, then I wouldn't have done it. But I actually do like the paint scheme of it. I like the bubbles and the light blue on it, and the scientist on it. So yeah. And also this truck also might be retiring because we didn't see this truck in the kickoff show either, or Lee O'Donnell in general. So we don't know about those two. I hope Lee O'Donnell makes a comeback because he has definitely stepped his game up since that one historic night on March 25th, 2017. Number 3. Anyone who knows Monster Jam for 2010 knew this one would be up way high up there. Number 3 is the People's Truck, the myth, the legend, the Advanced Auto Parts Grinder. I absolutely love this body. Now, of course, it appears black on here, which I wish it would have done a black paint scheme. But I really do like this truck. I like the shade of red on it. And this camera's making it look black for the second time again. Yeah, unfortunately, this truck's not coming back, sadly. Advanced Auto Parts, of course, it sponsored Monster Jam from 2010 to 2013. From the Advanced Auto Parts Monster Jam series, if anyone rings a bell on that. And eventually retired at the end of 2013. Eventually, the G on there is actually a rotating disc, similar to Escalade's wheels, which Escalade's not on this list, so I'm sorry, but I wish this truck would come back, even though it definitely is not. Even if they put a different sponsorship on it, like maybe not the VP Racing Fuels grinder, but something having to do with that. Number 2. At number 2, we have another iconic truck. This is Nitro Circus. Travis Pastrana himself debuted the Nitro Circus at World Finals 10. Originally it was Pastrana 199, and then Cam McQueen took over because he was a good buddy of his. And then, of course, as everybody knows, Nitro Circus did the first ever backflip in scored competition in Jacksonville in 2010. Here's a gift for you. Look at that. Isn't that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? So in short, if you didn't know, Travis Pastrana himself tried to do a backflip in a monster truck back in the Nitro Circus TV show, which it did not go as planned. But anyway, this truck still rocks. Eventually retired in 2011. So eventually it was replaced with Northern Nightmare, which is a good alternative, but I really do miss this truck.
Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills, and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you're curious about what I look like in real life...
Ah, shut up. Okay, number 1, you guys were expecting this. It's Goldberg. Goldberg, of course, it was the truck that became Max D, what became T-Ments, because 9/11 just happened, and maximum structure was considered disrespectful in a way. So therefore, he held it off for a year, and then eventually, its predecessor was Goldberg, and usually there's a WCW logo on the hood there, but this was after WCW was bought out by WWE, of course. Of course, we all know Bill Goldberg. He's a wrestler, and of course, its diecast is probably the rarest diecast up there with Inferno 2003, Skatazoid, and World Finals 10 commemorative truck. And mostly because the wheels break off so easily. Of course, I don't own one myself. I really wish I did. And yeah, eventually Tom Mentz just went his own way. And then who can blame him? He's Tom Mentz. I mean, come on. Eventually he would have to, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. If now, for the question of the day, which truck out of all the licensed trucks in Monster Jam would you want to see returned somehow in some form, if they somehow re-signed a contract, or if or you know, in any way, if they could return anyway, which truck would you want to see return? Leave a comment down below, subscribe, like, comment, share this video if you're into that kind of thing, and I will see you guys in the next video.